one of the things that talking at these things, it's great, but it can suck. It's like, am I going to say something that everybody already knows? So, how many of you are entrepreneurs, like currently operating a business? Okay, how many of you are interested in becoming an entrepreneur and operating a business in the next 12 months? How many of you are looking to work at a company that is entrepreneurial in a startup? Okay, I'm going to remember these people. Okay, great. And how many are like service providers, lawyers, bankers, men? Okay, cool. So we'll keep this fairly brief. I think we wanted to just kind of talk about a few things in terms of sort of lessons learned over the past 3 years, 3.5 years. Because one of the things that's really been valuable to us, and for those of you that know our company, Chris and I, we value learning a lot. And so one of the things that we found very useful in our 3.5 years, 3 years in business is just all the learning that we've been able to acquire from the people around us during that time. And so we kind of wanted to share some of that from our perspective and kind of 4 key themes. And I'll touch on a few, Chris will touch on a few, but really, the importance of finding a good partner for those of you that are looking to start something. The importance of getting the right people on the bus and what that means and that concept. For those of you that, I'll touch on our story in a minute, but we recently raised, about 3 months ago, we raised some venture capital after being in business for 3 years, which was kind of a weird thing. So I wanted to talk about that, some sort of lessons learned and how that affected our culture. And then lastly, Chris will spend some time talking about culture and what that really means. Quick bit of background on the company. We create an enterprise marketing or integrated marketing product that we're starting to call it now. That delivers a very integrated customer profile that helps largely healthcare companies optimize their marketing efforts. So it's a very B2B enterprise play that's a relevant backdrop to some of the things I'll share about funding. But Chris and I haven't actually spoken together in about 3 years. We did a talk at STS like when we started our business, and it turns out our investors found it and watched it before they invested in our company. So I'm kind of concerned about that too. So it was, but the first thing, and I'm very lucky to have a partner like Chris, and the thing that we learned very early on is to find complementary like skill sets. I could never do what Chris does, and that was really important when we decided to work together. Was that, hey, let's make sure that we can work with somebody who has a skill set very different than ours, and that's important because I think that's uncomfortable for a lot of people. Working with somebody who's we're not alike in a lot of ways. We're philosophically very similar, and our value systems are very similar, but the things that we like to do are pretty different. The kind of people we hang out with are pretty different. And that's actually created an incredible opportunity for both of us, not only in our own personal growth and learning, but in terms of how we built our business and been able to kind of bring the best of breed into day-to-day operations of Appature. So I'd say that's number 1. I'm going to move very quickly through this. Number 2, getting the right people on the bus. This is something we also learned recently, was sort of understand the people you need at the right stage. So one of the things that when you're an early bootstrap company, we started out, we had $4,000 that we pulled together, and you used it just to buy a few machines and try to get our ideas out there. And you're obviously pretty constrained in terms of how and who you recruit. So we ended up obviously bringing on a lot of people we knew really well and trusted and brought them close to the business. And as we've moved on, we've been in business long enough now to have people that have lasted a long time and people that haven't, unfortunately, and in some cases, fortunately. And one of the things that we've learned, especially recently, is validation and how important it is, and to not be scared to validate the people that you bring on board. And I think that's sort of obvious. It's, oh, hey, of course you do reference checks and sort of the basic stuff, but getting people on the bus that you can actually go and talk to people that are in your network. And that's one of the things that makes Seattle such a great place to start a company, is that it's a very tight-knit community. So you can generally find people that you know in common, or somebody who knows somebody that you don't even know that you know each other. So I would say that's another kind of key lesson learned that we've had recently. And then the third one, kind of the segue into culture a little bit, talk about specifically, so as I mentioned, we were in business for about 3 years, got to a point in our business where, to be quite frank, we couldn't really commercialize. We built a great product, we had some lighthouse customers on board that were paying us decent money to operate and service them, and we were really happy about it, but we couldn't actually get that product into more people's hands, and it was a struggle. And so we went through the whole venture capital thing, and I'm not kissing ass because none of our investors are here, but it was an interesting process because we, number one, weren't sure we should do it, and Eric and Gordo know that all too well. There was a lot of they're helping us out, and then we're like, oh, maybe we're not going to do this. And like, oh, are you kidding? So you tend to vacillate a little bit, but at the end of the day, we sort of we kind of sat back and we knew that we had a vision for where we wanted to take this business, and we had the data to show us what the opportunity is, and venture capital has given us the opportunity to do that, and we're grateful because we have amazing investors that really do believe in our business and are committed to its success. The one thing that I'll highlight real quick before I jump into the culture piece about investors, so I would tell a lot of people prior to when we raised a round that, I want to get investors that are going to be an extension of our team. They're actually going to go out and get work done with us, and probably 90% of people that I told that to, if not 95%, told me I was high. They're like, you were nuts. There's no way that you're going to get investors that are going to go out and do things and work for you. And we have that, which is incredible. So, they actually will go out and interview people for us. They'll actually go out and find candidates. They'll actually go out and help us look at different models and sit down and spend time and do work. And that's the biggest limitation as an early stage business, is you have no shortage of things that have to happen, and you have an incredible shortage of people and energy and brain power and time, which is the number one enemy in terms of delivering on those things. So for all those reasons, and went through the whole process, got great investors on board, then came the culture, and then came, okay, well, what does this mean? So when you're a bootstrap business, and I was talking to somebody here, and I won't say who just in case they don't want it public, but they're bootstrapping their business, and they're saying, okay, well, I'm going to keep going all the way, and we were sort of that way too for the first couple of years. So we're just going to bootstrap this, and it's going to be amazing. Everyone's going to want to buy our product, and it didn't really work that way, and so we decided that venture capital is the way to go, and so as a result, we sort of had to now shift the culture in terms of how we thought about things. So the way that we always have thought about things was we've always been sort of an eat what you kill company, I like to call it, right? So literally, you're going from payroll to payroll. You've got to get that PO, you got to get that invoice, because you can't make payroll 3 weeks from now if you don't do that. And so you're kind of operating in that mode. And then all of a sudden, now you've got the capital you need to actually grow. And so one thing that Chris and I were really scared about was losing that. That we felt like that was a big piece of our success, was making sure that we kept the value on acquiring revenue from the customer, giving the customer a fair deal, making sure that we managed our business to service the customer in a way that could deliver the value they were looking for, and not do them the disservice of going out of business because we got too responsible. And that's the same mode. But there's a whole team shift that has to happen too, in terms of not only making sure people recognize that, but making sure you don't swing the pendulum too far. And I think some of the things that have happened with us in terms of how we're thinking about the business and the culture recently was making sure we gave our team the opportunity to really understand that we are going to keep those principles, but also start to look even further forward. And so that's kind of the process we're in now, and it creates a lot of interesting cultural dimensions. And I guess I'll sort of pass it off to Chris with this parting thought that there's no entrepreneurs will tell you, and a lot of people told us this constantly when we started our business, culture's the most important, culture's the most important. And it's like, yeah, of course, totally, and I'm a cool guy, and I have friends, and we have great culture, like, it's not going to be that hard. And you have to shift models from being very clinical about things as we were in an earlier stage business, and as the team grows, you have to continue to be clinical in some ways, but add the cultural elements where you can, and be really aware and cognizant of them. So with that, I'll let Chris kind of